Welcome, everybody. I'm going to read from the Bible, the Jewish section. This week's section of the Bible study. Did you hear the music in the background? This is from the Black Orthodox Jewish young man named Nissim Black. He's from Seattle, Washington, but currently he lives in Jerusalem, Israel. So if you hear his music in the background, I suggest or recommend, hey, check his music out. This is good music with good holy messages that he's relaying to his audience. So let me get to the blessing to the Torah. Baraku Adonai Hamvarak. Bless Hashem, the blessed one. Baruch Adonai Hamvarak Leilam Vaed. This is what the audience would say back to me. But Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam. Blessed are you, Hashem, our God, King of the universe. Asher B'cha Benu Mechol Ha'amin, who selected us from all the peoples. Venatan lanu et Torato, and gave us his Torah. Baruch atah Adonai, notain ha-Torah. Blessed are you, Hashem, giver of the Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Blessed are you, Hashem, our God, King of the universe. Asher natan lanu Torah emet, who gave us the Torah of truth. Vechaye olam natah betochenu, and implanted eternal life within us. It's really in us is what that means. And Baruch atah Adonai notain ha-Torah. Blessed are you, Hashem, giver of the Torah. Now, if you don't have a Jewish Bible, but the English translation of the Bible, if you have a Android phone or iOS phone, go to the store, Google Store or iOS store, and download the Sefaria app. It's spelled Sefaria, and get your free Jewish Bible online with a lot of information for free. So I'm going to Leviticus chapter 12, verse 1. This is the beginning of the parashah, this week's section called Tazria-Metzora. Ve'daber Adonai al Moshe lemor. God spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the Israelite people thus: when a woman at childbirth bears a male, she shall be impure 7 days. She shall be impure as at the time of her condition of menstrual separation. Let me turn the music up, but God get some background noise. On the 8th day, the flesh of his foreskin shall be circumcised. She shall remain in a state of blood purification for 33 days. She shall not touch any consecrated thing, nor enter the sanctuary until her period of purification is completed. If she bears a female, she shall be impure 2 weeks, as during her menstruation, and she shall remain in a state of blood purification for 66 days. On the completion of her period of purification, for either son or daughter, she shall bring to the priest at the entrance of the tent of meeting a lamb in its first year for a burnt offering, and a pigeon or a turtle dove for a sin offering. She shall offer it before Adonai and make expiation on her behalf. She shall then be pure from her flow of blood. Such are the rituals concerning her who bears a child, male or female. So we're reading about a Jewish woman, a non-Jewish woman. These laws, these rules, these teachings are specifically for Jewish women and not binding on non-Jewish women. If, however, her maidens do not suffice for a sheep, she shall take 2 turtle doves or 2 pigeons, one for a burnt offering and the other for a sin offering. The priest shall make expiation on her behalf, and she shall be pure. Adonai spoke to Moshe and Aaron, saying, When a person has on the skin of the body a swelling, a rash, or a discoloration, and it develops into a scaly affection on the skin of the body, it shall be reported to Aaron the priest or to one of his sons the priest. The priest shall examine the affection on the skin of the body. If hair in the affected patch has turned white, and the affection appears to be deeper than the skin of the body, it is a leprous affection. It's not leprous. Metzora means a physical appearance of a spiritual malady or spiritual impurity or in spiritual impurities. When the priest sees it, he shall pronounce the person impure. But if it is a white discoloration on the skin of the body, which does not appear to be deeper than the skin, and the hair in it has not turned white, the priest shall isolate the affected person for 7 days. On the seventh day, the priest shall conduct an examination, and if the affection has remained unchanged in color and the disease has not spread on the skin, the priest shall isolate that person for another 7 days. On the seventh day, the priest shall again conduct an examination. If the affection has faded and has not spread on the skin, the priest shall pronounce the person pure. It is a rash. After washing those clothes, that person shall be pure. Ve'im paso. Tisei hamis pachat ba'or acharei haroto el hakohen leta haroto venera sheni el hakohen. But if the rash should spread on the skin after the person has been seen by the priest and pronounced pure, that person shall again report to the priest. Ve'ra hakohen ve'hene pasta chamis pachat ba'or ve'timo hakohen zaratz heave. And if the priest sees that the rash has spread on the skin, the priest shall pronounce that person impaired. It is a spiritual malady. Remember, leprosy is really Metzora in Hebrew, and the best way to understand Metzora, this concept, Metzora is it's a physical appearance of a spiritual impurity or spiritual impurities or a spiritual malady. If the priest finds on the skin a white swelling which has turned some hair white with a patch of undiscolored flesh in the swelling, it is chronic Metzora or on. So it is chronic. See, it's hard to try to understand this in English. It is a chronic spiritual impurity on the skin. So I'll just say spiritual impurity. It is chronic spiritual impurity on the skin of the body, and the priest shall pronounce the person impure. Being impaired, that person need not be isolated. If the eruption spreads out over the skin so that it covers all the skin of the affected person from head to foot, wherever the priest can see, if the priest sees that the eruption has covered the whole body, he shall pronounce as pure the affected person, who is pure from having turned all white. Uvyom heraot bo basar chi yi tema. But as soon as undiscolored flesh appears in it, that person shall be impure. When the priest sees the undiscolored flesh, he shall pronounce the person impure. The undiscolored flesh is impure, it is leprosy. But if the undiscolored flesh again turns white, that person shall come to the priest. And the priest shall conduct an examination. If the affection has turned white, the priest shall pronounce as pure the affected person, who is then pure. Going to Leviticus 13, chapter 18. When an inflammation appears on the skin of one's body and it heals, and a white swelling or a white discoloration streaked with red develops where the inflammation was, that person shall report to the priest. If the priest finds that it appears lower than the rest of the skin and that the hair in it has turned white, the priest shall pronounce the person impure. It is a leprous affection that has broken out in the inflammation. Ve'im. But if, Yirena hakohen ve'hene ein ba Sear Lavan Ushpala A Nena Min Haor Vehiv Keha Vehiz Giro Hakohen Shivat Yamin. But if the priest finds that there is no white hair in it, and it is not lower than the rest of the skin, and it is faded, the priest shall isolate that person for 7 days. If it should spread in the skin, the priest shall pronounce the person impure. It is an infection. But if the discoloration remains stationary, not having spread, it is the scar of the inflammation. The priest shall pronounce that person pure. When the skin of one's body sustains a burn by fire, and the patch from the burn is a discoloration, either white streaked with red or white, the priest shall examine it. If some hair has turned white in the discoloration, which itself appears to go deeper than the skin, it is leprosy. But once again, it is spiritual malady or spiritual impurity. That has broken out in the burn. The priest shall pronounce the person impure. It is a spiritual effect. It is a spiritual impurity affection. But if the priest finds that there is no white hair in the discoloration and that it is not lower than the rest of the skin, and it is faded, the priest shall isolate that person for 7 days. On the seventh day, the priest shall conduct an examination. If it has spread in the skin, the priest shall pronounce the person impure. It is a spiritual impurity affection. But if the discoloration has remained stationary, not having spread on the skin, and it is faded, it is the swelling from the burn. The priest shall pronounce that person pure, for it is the scar of the burn. If a man or a woman has an infection on the head or in the beard, the priest shall examine the affection. If it appears to go deeper than the skin and there is thin yellow hair in it, the priest shall pronounce the person impure. It is a scald, a scaly eruption in the hair or beard. But if the priest finds that the skull affection does not appear to go deeper than the skin, yet there is no black hair in it, the priest shall isolate the person with the skull affection for 7 days. On the seventh day, the priest shall examine the affection. If the skull does not spread and no yellow hair has appeared in it, and the scald does not appear to go deeper than the skin, the person with the skull shall shave, but without shaving the skull, the person shall isolate that person for another 7 days. On the seventh day, the priest shall examine the skull. If the skull has not spread on the skin and does not appear to go deeper than the skin, the priest shall pronounce the person pure. After washing those clothes, that person shall be pure. Tahir is so pure or purity in Hebrew, biblical Hebrew, is tahar. If, however, the skull should spread on the skin after the person has been pronounced pure, the person shall conduct an examination. If the skull has spread on the skin, the priest need not look for yellow hair. The person is impure. Impure. So purity or pure is tahar. In Hebrew, it's spelled Tahar, and tameh for impurity. So it's really referring to spiritual purity and spiritual impurities. So tameh, it's spelled Tame, tameh. But if the skull has remained unchanged in color and black hair has grown in it, the skull is healed, the person is pure. The priest shall pronounce that person pure. Excuse me, woke up with allergies this morning. If a man or woman has a skin of the body streaked with white discolorations, and the priest sees that the discolorations on the skin of the body are of a dull white, it is a tear broken out on the skin. That person is pure. If a man loses the hair of his head and becomes bald, he is pure. Ve'im mipat panav yemaretz rosho giveahu tahor hu. If he loses the hair on the part of his head and becomes bald, At the forehead, he is pure. But if a white affection streaked with red appears on the bald part in the front or at the back of the head, it is a scaly eruption that is spreading over the bald part in the front or at the back of the head. The priest shall examine him. If the swollen affection on the bald part in the front or at the back of his head is white streaked with red, like the spiritual impurity of body, skin, and appearance, he is a leprous man. But once again, leprous does, Metzora doesn't mean leprosy. You know, so it says here, Ish Zarua, which is an impure man. The priest shall pronounce him impure. He has the affection on his head. As for the person with the spiritual malady affection, the clothes shall be rent, the head shall be left bare, and the upper lip shall be covered over, and that person shall call out, Ve tame, tame, impure, or really ve tame, tame, and impure, impure. So don't get confused is if I'm using Metzora interchangeably with spiritual impurities or spiritual malady, it means the same thing. This is the significance and the importance of learning the biblical Hebrew. Don't fret. God is on standby today. Pray out to him, reach out to him, say, hey, I want to learn biblical Hebrew, and you'll be shocked how easy learning the biblical Hebrew becomes accessible. So the person shall be impaired. So I'm right here at Leviticus chapter 13, verse 46. The person shall be impaired as long as the disease is present. Being impaired, that person shall dwell apart in a dwelling outside the camp. Also, I like to point out for the non-Jewish, people like me, non-Jews, or being on the scene, the hidden Jews, So don't fret. We're reading right now. When we talk about culture misappropriation, this right here, the Bible from Genesis to the book of Revelation to the New Testament has been misappropriated for almost 2,000 years, So don't fret. We're reading about the Jewish man, the Jewish woman in this Jewish section of the Old Testament. This information, if you haven't heard anything about this before, this is new information. This is what God is doing in our time. Eventually we have to set up a community where we can go and learn more of the biblical Hebrew, the biblical Aramaic, and the Greek New Testament. I don't subscribe to the Greek New Testament as a belief. I understand it. And there's reasons for that, but for everybody that's like me, grew up in the church, my religious background is the Roman Catholic Church. Actually, I'll talk about this at the end of Parashah. Sorry, I shouldn't break up the holy reading here. So Leviticus chapter 13, verse 46. The person shall be impure as long as the disease is present. Being impaired, that person shall dwell apart in a dwelling outside the camp. When an eruptive affection occurs in a cloth of wool or linen fabric, in the warp or in the woof of the linen or the wool, or in a skin or in anything made of skin, if the affection in the cloth or the skin, in the warp or the woof, or in any article of skin is streaky green or red, it is an eruptive affection. It shall be shown to the priest. And the priest, after examining the affection, shall isolate the affected article for 7 days. So the priest here is the Jewish priest, Aaron and his descendants, the Leviticus tribe, is also included. On the 7th day, he shall examine the affection. If the affection has spread in the cloth, whether in the warp or the woof or in the skin, for whatever purpose the skin may be used, the affection is a malignant eruption. It is impure. The cloth whether warp or woof, in wool or linen, or any article of skin in which the affection is found, shall be burned. For it is a malignant eruption, it shall be consumed in fire. But if the priest sees that the affection in the cloth, whether in warp or in woof, or in any article of skin, has not spread, the priest shall order the affected article washed, and he shall isolate it for another 7 days. And if after the affected article has been washed, the priest sees that the affection has not changed color and that it has not spread, it is impure. It shall be consumed in fire. It is a fret, whether on its inner side or on its outer side. But if the priest sees that the affected part, after it has been washed, is faded, he shall tear it out from the cloth or skin, whether in the warp or in the woof. And if it occurs again in the cloth, whether in warp or in woof or in any article of skin, it is a wild growth. The affected article shall be consumed in fire. If, however, the affection disappears from the cloth, warp or woof, or form any article of skin that has been washed, it shall be washed again, and it shall be pure. Such is the procedure for eruptive affections of cloth, woolen or linen, in warp or in woof, or of any article of skin, for pronouncing it pure or impure. Leviticus chapter 14. Now, this section, so we just read about um, Zaria in the previous chapter and a half, and now we're here in Leviticus chapter 14, verse 1. Now we're going to read about Metzora. Ve'daber Adonai el Moshe lemor. And God spoke to Moses, saying, this shall be the ritual for a spiritual malady at the time of being purified, when it has been reported to the priest. The Kohen, so Kohen means priest in Hebrew. You probably heard and seen the word Kohen. It's spelled Cohen. That means priest. That's a biblical Hebrew word also. It's a Jewish word. The priest shall go outside the camp. So I'm also going to interchangeably use words in Hebrew from the parashah so that you can build a vocabulary, and also so I could build a vocabulary too. The priest shall go, so the Kohen shall go outside the camp. If the Kohen sees that the spiritual malady has been healed of the scaly infection, the Kohen shall order 2 live pure birds, cedar wood, crimson stuff, and hyssop to be brought for the one to be purified. The Kohen shall order one of the birds slaughtered over fresh water in an earthen vessel. And he shall take the live bird, right? The Kohen shall take the live bird along with the cedar wood, the crimson stuff, and the hyssop, and dip them together with the live bird in the blood of the bird that was slaughtered over the fresh water. He shall then sprinkle it 7 times on the one to be purified of the eruption, and effect the purification, and he shall set the live bird free in the open country. The one to be purified shall wash those clothes, shave off all hair, and bathe in water, and then shall be pure. Tahar. So remember, tahar means pure. After that, the camp may be entered, but one must remain outside one's tent 7 days. And remember, keep in mind, the reason why the tent is being used is because the Jewish people, with a small group of non-Jewish people that were liberated by God from Mitzrayim, the ancient Egypt, they're living in tents. And it also parallels to somebody's house. But on the 7th day, all hair shall be shaved off of head, beard, if any, and eyebrows. Having shaved off all hair, the person shall wash those clothes and bathe the body in water, and then shall be tahar, pure. On the 8th day, that person shall take 2 male lambs without blemish, 1 ewe lamb in its first year without blemish, 3/10 of, so blemish also means impure, Talmay. Let me double check here in the Hebrew. Um, yep, Temima. So Temima is another word, from the root word Tamay, Temim, impurities. Um, so on the eighth day, that person shall take 2 male lambs without blemish, one ewe lamb in its first year without blemish, 3/10 of a measure of choice flour with oil mixed in for a meal offering, and 1 log of oil. Um, these shall be presented before Adonai. So it's interesting because tahar or tameh is the biblical word being used when addressing human beings, and then tamim, right, still means impurity, but it's referring to animals now, and I find that interesting. But these shall be presented before Adonai. So the acronym spelling of God's name, right? It's a title. It's Yud, okay, a Y, Hey, which is a H, Vav, which is a V, and then Hey, which is another H, is translated as Adonai, which means my master. Okay, so when I say Adonai, keep in mind I'm reading the Yud Hey Vav Hey acronym title of God. God is God's name. And also heard that what Yud Hey Vav Hey really means is what is it? When he says, I shall be what I shall be. I'm trying to remember how to say it in Hebrew, off of memory. Yiye, Asher Yiye, I shall be what I shall be, which really means, which is the acronym meaning of the word Yud Hey Vav Hey. But here it's so anytime you hear me say Adonai, referring to God, acronym title, these shall be presented before Adonai with the party to be purified at the entrance of the tent of meeting by the Kohen who performs the purification. The Kohen shall take one of the male lambs and offer it with the log of oil as a guilt offering, and he shall elevate them as an elevation offering before Adonai. Um, Leviticus 14, verse 13. The lamb shall be slaughtered at the spot in the sacred area where the sin offering and the burnt offering are slaughtered. For the guilt offering, like the sin offering, goes to the Kohen. It is most holy. And here it's called in Hebrew Kadeshim. Actually, it's for so La Kohen for the Kohen, the priest, Kodesh Kadeshim, and it's translated as it is most holy. The priest or the Kohen shall take some of the blood, midam, from the blood. Dam in Hebrew, Dam means blood. The Kohen shall take some of the dam of the guilt offering, and the Kohen shall put it on the ridge of the right ear of the one who is being purified, and on the thumb of the right hand, and on the big toe of the right foot. The Kohen shall then take some of the log of oil and pour it into the palm of his left hand. And the Kohen shall dip his right finger in the oil that is in the palm of his left hand and sprinkle some of the oil with his finger 7 times before Adonai. Some of the oil left in his palm, some of the oil left in his palm shall be put by the priest on the ridge of the right ear of the one being purified, on the thumb of the right hand, and on the big toe of the right foot over the blood of the guilt offering. The rest of the oil is in his palm. The Kohen shall put on the head of the one being purified. Thus the priest shall make expiation for that person before Adonai. The priest shall then offer the sin offering and make expiation for the one being purified of defilement. Last, the burnt offering shall be slaughtered. And the Kohen shall offer the burnt offering and the meal offering on the altar. The priest shall make expiation for that person who shall then be pure. If, however, one is poor and without sufficient means, That person shall take one male lamb for a guilt offering to be elevated in expiation, 1/10 of a measure of choice flour with oil mixed in for a meal offering, and a log of oil. Literally, that's how it's spelled in Hebrew. The word is log, velog, and log. So it's really log, not log. And the two turtle doves or two pigeons, depending on that person's means, the one to be the sin offering and the other the burnt offering. On the 8th day of purification, the person shall bring them to the Kohen at the entrance of the tent of meeting before Adonai. The Kohen shall take the lamb of guilt offering and the log of oil and elevate them as an elevation offering before Adonai. When the lamb of guilt offering has been slaughtered, the priest shall take some of the blood, right, some of the dam or the dam of the guilt offering, and put it on the ridge of the right ear of the one being purified, on the thumb of the right hand, and on the big toe of the right foot. The Kohen shall then pour some of the oil into the palm of his left hand, and with the finger of his right hand, the priest shall sprinkle some of the oil that is in the palm of his left hand 7 times before Adonai. Some of the oil in his palm shall be put by the priest on the ridge of the right ear of the one being purified, on the thumb of the right hand, and on the big toe of the right foot, over the same places as the blood of the guilt offering. And what is left of the oil in his palm, the priest shall put on the head of the one being purified, to make expiation for that person before Adonai. That person shall then offer some of the turtle doves or pigeons, depending on the person's means. Financial income is what that means. What you can afford. Whichever that person can afford, see, that one as a sin offering and the other as a burnt offering, together with the meal offering. Thus the Kohen shall make expiation before Adonai for the one being purified. Such is the ritual for one who has a scaly infection and whose means for purification are limited. Adonai spoke to Moshe and Aaron, saying, when you enter the land of Canaan that I give you as a possession, and I inflict an eruptive plague upon a house in the land you possess, the owner of the house shall come and tell the priest, saying, something like a plague has appeared upon my house. The Kohen shall order the house cleared before the priest enters to examine the plague, so that nothing in the house may become impure. After the priest shall enter to examine the house. If, when he examines the plague in the walls of the house is found to consist of greenish or reddish streaks that appear to go deep into the wall, the priest shall come out of the house to the entrance of the house and close up the house for 7 days. On the seventh day, the priest shall return. If he sees that the plague has spread on the walls of the house, the priest shall order the stones with the plague in them to be pulled out and cast outside the city into an impure place. The house shall be scraped inside all around, and the coating that is scraped off shall be dumped outside the city in an impure place. They shall take other stones and replace those stones with them, and take another coating and plaster the house. If the plague again breaks out in the house after the stones have been pulled out, and after the house has been scraped and replastered, the priest shall come to examine. If the plague has spread in the house, it is a malignant eruption in the house. It is impure. Talmud, impure, right? So the house shall be torn down, its stones and timber and all the coating on the house, and taken to an impure place outside the city. Whoever enters the house while it is closed up shall be Talmud. until evening. Whoever sleeps in the house must wash those clothes, and whoever eats in the house must wash those clothes. If, however, the Kohen comes and sees that the plague has not spread in the house after the house was replastered, the Kohen shall pronounce the house pure, for the plague has healed. To purge the house, he shall take 2 birds, cedar wood, crimson stuff, and hyssop. He shall slaughter the one bird over fresh water in an earthen vessel. Excuse me. He shall take the cedar wood, the hyssop, the crimson stuff, and the live bird, and dip them in the blood of the slaughtered bird and the fresh water, and sprinkle on the house 7 times. Having purged the house with the blood of the bird, the fresh water, the live bird, the cedar wood, the hyssop, and the crimson stuff, he shall he shall set the live bird free outside the city in the open country. Thus he shall make expiation for the house, and it shall be tahar. Tahar is pure. Here it's saying ve taher. So ve taher is ve taher is tahar, purities. So such is the ritual for every eruptive affection, for scalds, for an eruption on a cloth or a house, for swellings, for rashes, or for discolorations, to determine when they are impure and when they are pure. Le horot bayon hatame uvion hatahor zot torat hazara. So it's to determine when they are tame and when they are tahor, pure. Such is the ritual concerning eruptions. Leviticus chapter 15, verse 1. Adonai spoke to Moshe, so ve daber Adonai al Moshe ve al Aharon lemar deberu el bnei Yisrael va armartem elechem ish ki yeye zav mibesoro zovo tamehu. Um, So Adonai spoke to Moshe and Aaron, saying, "Speak to the Israelite people and say to them, when any man has a discharge issuing from his member, he is impure. The impurity from his discharge shall mean the following: whether his member runs with the discharge or is stopped up so that there is no discharge, his impurity means this: any bedding on which the one with the discharge lies shall be impure." So this is when a Jewish man is asleep at night and he has a discharge. This is the remedy. Any bedding on which the one with the discharge lies shall be impure, and every object on which he sits shall be impure. Those persons who touch his bedding shall wash their clothes, bathe in water, and remain impure until evening. Those who sit on an object on which the one with the discharge has sat shall wash their clothes, bathe in water, and remain impure until evening. Those who touch the body of the one with the discharge shall wash their clothes, bathe in water, and remain impure until evening. If the one with the discharge spits on someone who is pure, the latter shall wash those clothes, bathe in water, and remain impure until evening. Any means for writing that any means for writing that the one with the discharge has mounted shall be impure. All those who touch anything that was under him shall be impure until evening, and all those who carry such things shall wash their clothes, bathe in water, and remain impure until evening. All those whom the one with a discharge touches without having rinsed his hands in water shall wash their clothes, bathe in water, and remain impure until evening. And believe it or not, this is why people today are told over and over and over, wash your hands. Comes from this section right here, believe it or not. If you disagree, hey, go study ancient world history and you'll see where this is true by the behavior of the ancient society and the impact that Judaism had on the ancient civilization, or the ancient world of civilization. So Leviticus 15, verse 12. An earthen vessel that the one with the discharge touches shall be broken, and any wooden implement shall be rinsed with water. With the one with the discharge becomes purified of his discharge, he shall count off 7 days for his purification, wash those clothes, and bathe his body in fresh water. Then he shall be tahor, pure. Or here it's saying ve taher, and pure. On the eighth day he shall take two turtle doves or two. Hold on. On the eighth day he shall take two turtle doves or two pigeons and come before Adonai at the entrance of the tent of meeting and give them to the priest. The Kohen shall offer them, the one as a sin offering and the other as a burnt offering. Thus the priest shall make expiation on his behalf for his discharge before Adonai. When a man has an emission of semen, he shall bathe his whole body in water and remain impure until evening. All cloth or leather on which semen falls shall be washed in water and remain impure until evening. Likewise for a woman, for a Jewish woman. So we're talking about Jewish men and now Jewish women. Likewise for a Jewish woman, when a man has carnal relations with her, both shall bathe in water and remain impure until evening. When a woman when a Jewish woman has a discharge, her discharge being blood from, and I shouldn't say Jewish woman because it's saying Veisha. So it's when a woman, right? So it seems the Torah is generalizing, not distinguishing from a Jewish woman and a non-Jewish woman, because it would say something, specifically a Hebrew woman or a Jewish woman, but using the general word Veisha. But remember, Paul says if you subscribe to the Greek New Testament, these rules and regulations, the blessings come first to the Jew and then for the Gentile. And on the other side of the spectrum, the curses go first to the Jews and then secondly to the non-Jewish people. So um, when a woman has a discharge, her discharge being blood from her body, she shall remain in her menstrual separation 7 days. Whoever touches her shall be impure until evening. And like I said, I'll give a little commentary at the end, my position behind what the rabbis say for the Jewish people. You can't, we don't believe in the Greek New Testament, Jesus the Christ. And I'll comment the reason why at the end of this video and just briefly touch down my position. Where do I stand? This is the beautiful thing about Judaism, that you can be a free person, a free thinker, and freely to decide your own fate in life, right? So Leviticus 15, verse 20. Anything that she lies on during her menstrual separation shall be impure, and anything that she's on and anything that she sits on shall be impure. So here it's called yitma. Still, tame, but here for the woman, it's yitma is the word using. So it's spelled Yitma, yitma. So all those who touch her bedding shall wash their clothes, bathe in water, and remain impure until evening. So, what's the relationship between a man, Jewish man and Jewish woman here, or, a man and woman? Look, they both can um, spread, right? The man from sleeping at night have a discharge, and even the woman at night or even during the day, just like the man can leave these spiritual impurities, because that's really what we're reading about. This is the physical reading and then the spiritual understanding that you can um if you don't wash your bed, right, you don't wash the things you sit on and stuff when you discharge a semen, or for a woman when she has her discharge, you can spread this spiritual impurity, right? It's interesting stuff when you really begin to read the Hebrew, when you begin to read the Bible for yourself. um, Obviously, I don't have anybody to read the Bible with, so I get lonely. And thank you, YouTube developers and creators, because now I can share, interact with people on social media and record videos and you know read about the Bible and share it with people that could also be in the same boat with me, want to read the Bible, want to really live according to the laws of God, but who really want to understand, you know, who God is and the relationship between the Greek New Testament and Jesus the Christ. Um, you know, so all those who touch her bedding shall wash their clothes, bathe in water, and remain impure until evening. Leviticus chapter 15, verse 22. And all those who touch any object on which she has sat shall wash their clothes, bathe in water, and remain impure until evening. Be it the bedding or be it the object on which she has sat. On touching it, one shall be impure until evening. And if a man lies with her, her menstrual separation applies to him. He shall be impure 7 days, and any bedding on which he lies shall become impaired. So you see, people present the Bible, right, as a weapon and degrading people. But when you begin to actually study with God, right, because we're not, my method when I read the Bible, and it's always been, I'm not trying to pick a side. I just want to know, I want to be able to read the Bible for myself. You might say one thing, this person might say another thing, right? But at the end of the day, I have people telling me if God is real, then he should be right a real to the point that it's easily accessible to study and read these original, which people told me all my life were dead languages, just to find out these dead languages are alive, living, and thriving today. So, and honestly, this stuff makes me happy. I enjoy reading this stuff, man. It's just, but so Leviticus 15, verse 24, Ve'im shacho yishchav ish ota urhid nedata alav ve'tameh shiva yamim vecha hamishkav asher yishchav alav yitma. And if a man lies with her, her menstrual separation applies to him. He shall be impure 7 days, and any bedding on which he lies shall become impure. That's crazy, right? So, what's written right here by God, right, is that we're told that even if a man sleeps with the woman and she is, during her menstrual cycle, that he takes on the teaching even of her, for the remedy, you know, for 7 days, anything and everything he touches is going to be impaired, right? So, so you see, it's not a man thing, woman thing. It's a human being thing that we all experience and we all go through in life. That's the real essence of the Bible and who God is, you know. For everybody. When I say everybody, what am I implying? Everybody, rich, poor, everybody, the LGBT community, everybody has the opportunity today to reach out and interact with God. Because you can mentally probe who God is and ask questions over here with God and get absolute truth back. So when a woman has had a discharge of blood for many days, not at the time of her menstrual separation, or when she has a discharge beyond her period of menstrual separation, she shall be impaired as though at the time of her menstrual separation, as long as her discharge lasts. Any bedding on which she lies while her discharge lasts shall be for her like bedding during her menstrual separation, and any object on which she sits shall become impaired as it does during her menstrual separation. All those who touch them shall be impure, and shall wash their clothes, bathe in water, and remain impure until evening. When she becomes purified of her discharge, she shall count off 7 days, and after that she shall be, what is it? So here it's saying teat har. So that's a future tense word in the biblical Hebrew, teat har. She shall be pure after conducting this Jewish ritual. So On the 8th day she shall take 2 turtle doves or 2 pigeons and bring them to the priest at the entrance of the tent of meeting. So this is what tent of meeting means. See over here, this is, you don't have to pay for free education. I'm going to teach you 2 words here. Tent of meeting. Ohel is spelled Ohel. Okay, space Moed. So Moed. Ohel Moed. Tent of meeting. Ohel means tent, and Moed means meeting. Moed. So the Kohen shall offer the one as a sin offering. The priest shall offer the one as a sin offering and the other as a burnt offering. So maybe you're wondering too, like, all my life, what does sin, what constitutes sin? But check this out. So this is the word being used in Hebrew. It's spelled Chatat. Chatat. Chatat means, which they, traditionally we all know, we're reading in English, is sin, right? But chatat is plural form here, so it's really saying as sins, as sins offering, meaning that there's more, because there's more than one sin being expressed right here in this plural form biblical word chatat. Chatat. You gotta, there's a gutter enunciation here with your throat. That's how you enunciate this biblical Hebrew word, chatat, chatat. So the priest shall offer the one as a chatat offering and the other as a burnt offering, and the Kohen shall make expiation on her behalf for her impaired discharge before Adonai. You shall put the Israelites on guard against their impurity, right? Lest they die through their impurity by defiling my tabernacle, which is among them. Such is the ritual. And it's really not, it's so Zot Torat. I really don't like the translation here, of Torat, ritual, especially when people are going to religious institutions in the United States of America and across the United States of America, and they're actually going to a cult where you can't ask questions. That's one of the signs if you're in a cult, a religious cult, where you can't question, right? Not to question the pastor or the spiritual teacher's authority. Just ask the Bible. Hey, how do I read the Bible in Hebrew, right? And they shut you down all the time, which by discouraging you and saying these are dead languages. But once again, these ancient dead languages are alive and thriving, and they have been all this time. So Zot Torat, these teachings, okay? That's what Torah really, means, divine teachings. These divine teachings, so such is the divine teachings concerning one who has a discharge, concerning him who has an emission of semen and becomes impaired thereby. So remember, like these conservative states are banning um, sexually induced books, right? They have to ban the Bible because I'm pretty sure, using their logic, you don't want to have your kids at school reading the Bible or even at church, right? Let's extend from the public school system to these religious institutions that are condemning people, weaponizing the Bible, and use their logic and throw it back at them and say, hey, okay, so let's ban all the books at school that are sexually inclined reading material, right? So we're going to apply that same logic and ban the Bible even at these religious institutions, because I'm pretty sure, using that same logic, you don't want your child reading who has an emission of semen, and so let's just keep it real, and moving and stuff. So here's Leviticus 16 verse 33, and concerning her whose condition is that of menstrual separation. So ve hadava benida benidata vechazav et zovo la zachar velane cheva ulish, or ule, yeah, ulish, uleish, might be uleish. I enunciate it and read it as ulish, Ulish. Now, really, Ulish, Asher Yishchav Im Tamea. And concerning her whose condition is that of menstrual separation. And concerning anyone, male or female, who has a discharge. And concerning a man who lies with an impure woman. I'm pretty sure you don't want your kids reading this sexually induced reading material of the Bible at school, at church, out in public, right? Hey, this is, you know, what happens when you weaponize the Bible, especially when we're living in the Akhirat Hayamin, the end of days, right? Where people are going to pop up with wisdom and start speaking the truth about the Bible and everything, and pointing out the fallacies of people's logic, really, and their irrational behavior, right? But remember, this is no one is exempt. Nobody, no man, no woman, no child in the world is exempt from the Bible, meaning that we all fail one way or another, or even the same way, just different degree of it, higher degree, lower degree, mid degrees, So my position when it comes to the Bible, because the rabbis, right, Hafrushim, the Pharisees today say, hey, for us Jewish people, we don't subscribe or believe in the Greek New Testament. And they've been told this all their lives, right, for the last 2,000 years. And that's, that's, there's nothing wrong with this. Is their book. This is the book. This is the Bible that God gave to Moses to give to Israel, right? Including the non-Jewish people that were there, that were attached to Israel, the nation of the Jews, right? That weren't separated. They interacted on a daily basis, went to synagogue when eventually synagogue came and all this stuff, But and then on the other side, people told me all my life, hey, you have to believe in this. Do you believe in Jesus the Christ and all this stuff, right? You need to stop sinning. But once again, in these places, I couldn't ask questions. Hey, what is a sin? Yeah, okay, you want me to stop sinning? Then what is a sin? And I couldn't wrap my mind around when they would tell me a sin is doing something wrong to a person, like murder or something. This is, and that was it. Really trying to follow that logic in life, and it was fragmented theology. A fragmented belief is what I carried around. So therefore, I didn't really want to talk about the Bible, because in the English translation of different translations, right, in revised Bibles and all this stuff, it's like you just can't follow the logic of the authors, right? You can't follow the logic of the authors that wrote, the Bible and everything. So this is what led me into reaching out to God, and then having, easy access, going back, to 2008, 2009 is where I engaged, began really getting books at the library and learning the biblical Hebrew, Aramaic, and the Greek New Testament, reading a lot of Jewish books and stuff too, and church books, to arrive to this point. So, because like many people today, there's 200 million people in the world today out of what, 7 billion people? I think it's a little more now, a little more than 7 billion people in the world today. Man, just 20 years ago, it seems like it was only like 6 billion. Now it's, and like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it was like almost 7 billion, and now it's over 7 billion people in the world. So 200 million of people today across the world, in my opinion, majority of those 200 million people are going to be on our side of the world: Canada, United States of America, South America, Mexico, the Caribbeans, all them places. People are going, and currently right now are discovering that they have Jewish last names, and they have they have Jewish DNA. So this means that they're finding out that their ancestors, grandparents, great grandparents, great great grandparents, right, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, great grandparents, seven, were Jewish people. So if I'm going to read the Bible, I'm going to take all of it. Okay, I'm not going to cut because I disagree with this and cut that out, and because I believe in this or accept this, and I'm not going to do that. I'm going to take the whole Bible at face value. I'm going to believe in all of it, or I'm not going to believe in all of it, right? So Matthew chapter 24, Jesus, the Christ, is telling his Jewish disciples that are actually Pharisees. And, I could prove all this stuff anyways. I mean, like I said, I read the Greek New Testament too. But he tells his disciples, he's like, hey, he tells, sorry. Man, I don't know what happened there. Like I said, my allergies are bad today. It's like, it seems like the air quality here in Amarillo, Texas is just poor. I ain't never suffered allergies this bad in my life. But anyways, so Jesus the Christ is telling his Jewish disciples, right? Like, look, you see the scholars over there, the scribes, and the Pharisees. He goes, they sit on the seat of Moses. So what he's talking about is the Metzora, they call in Hebrew, which is the transmission of the oral Torah and the spiritual authority, right? That God gave Moses and Moses gave to like Aaron and and so forth. And every generation it's been transmitted. And if I remember right, so anyway, so that's what he's telling his Jewish students. They sit on the seat of Moses, that they have the spiritual authority. So everything they tell you to do, you got to do it, and then people don't critically think that because the hate that's been added to this verse where he says, starts criticizing the Pharisees, whatever they tell you to do, don't do because they're hypocrites, right? But that's not what it says in the Greek New Testament. It's saying, just don't do as they do is what it really says. It doesn't call them hypocrites or anything, but there's the obvious reasons why it's intentionally mistranslated, because we're dealing with people's psyche, people's logic, people's rationality. When you're reading something and people are smiling in your face and saying, hey, this is accurate, then you find out it's really not. And then you begin to notice, verses in the New Testament, it's like it's kind of hateful, directed towards Jewish people. And, this is one of the instances where I point out, this added part that starts calling them hypocrites. Jesus Christ calling the Pharisees hypocrites, which makes no sense because another part of the gospel, the Pharisees come to Jesus the Christ to warn him, hey, Herod, he wants to, Herod the king, he wants to kill you, so you got to get out of here. And the inference is the Pharisees, right? Because Jesus the Christ is a Pharisee, and he's a Jewish man. And the Pharisees helped this Pharisee, Jesus the Christ, to get out of Dodge, right? And, if you read, the Greek New Testament, and it's saying, Jesus Christ starts saying, hey, you tell that fox, Herod, right? This, and that on the third day I'm resurrected or something like that, if I remember. But so my position is, hey, people that are coming out of the church, especially the B'nai on the scene, the 200 million people, yeah, don't reject the Greek New Testament until you read the Greek New Testament for yourself. Then resolve everything, all the theological go through all the theology that didn't make sense to you, that you're told from these religious institutions all your life. Because once you get to that point to read the Greek New Testament, right, and the biblical Hebrew and the Aramaic, when you get to that point, you're reading the Bible for yourself. That's what it means to be a Jewish person. Plus, this is the year for for liberation of the minds and freedom, right, of the mind, to be who you want to be. And so that's my position. Yeah, B'nai on the scene, you come outside of church, learn these languages, read the Bible for yourself. You decide. But remember, if we're going to, my position is if I'm going to read the Bible, I'm going to take all of it 100% the face value, even though I know there's inaccuracies in the Greek New Testament and it's not infallible, the word of God, but it's fallible. But it's like I'm salvaging Jewish concepts out of the Greek New Testament, right? There's a whole lot more, to expound on, but right here is not the place or time. So read the Bible for yourself is, is what I would suggest. And that's my position, because Jesus the Christ told Jewish people, come find out. Imagine that, reading the Bible. And this is for me. This is how it was. This is the experience of reading the Bible all my life until about 15 years ago. That I had no connection to the Bible. And because I had no connection to the Bible, I didn't even read the Bible unless I was falsely incarcerated or, going through, struggles in life like everybody goes through, especially those brown and white communities that we come from, the half breeds, right? Because I'm half Irish German and half Mexican Indian. I'm a Yaqui. And so I had no connection, no direct connection to the Bible. So it was just like, that's someone else that happened to, not me. I mean, and sorry, everybody, look at that. I almost took myself out. But, so that actually just, was a turnoff too. Like, knowing dang well I ain't holy, and it was for other people. It had nothing to do with me. It was someone else's religion and stuff, right? So it kind of, it was a turnoff for me and everything. And but now discovering and people aren't being told, hey, today God is moving big time, and one of the ways to prove that God is real, He does exist, is finding out that me, a brown skinned American over here, actually from both sides of my parents, are Sephardic and Ashkenaz families, Jewish families at one time, and proven by DNA. So now I'm like, when I read the Bible and the Greek New Testament, this is for me because I'm a Jew, right? That would constitute that I'm a Jew and everything. Maybe not under Halakha, Jewish law and everything, but I don't care because and I have a low percentage of DNA too. To me, how I understand the low percentage is that I'm at the last generation of my family that's going to lose their Jewish identity. But now, when I read the Bible, I have a direct connection to the Bible and world history and ancient world history and all kinds of crazy stuff, right? So that's what keeps bringing me back to the Bible and wanting to share it with people. And it gets lonely reading the Bible, especially when you come from a broken family, you come from a broken community, wherever you're at here in the United States of America, right? You're in communities impoverished, and then society today is just broken. It's immoral, right? Almost immoral. People are weaponizing the Bible. Um, that's not God when you take the Bible to weaponize it against people. And these people that are weaponizing the Bible, no one's told them the reason why you're weaponizing the Bible, because on a psychological plane of reasoning, against your will, against your consent, without, while you're unconscious, basically, the Bible is weaponized against you. And you're just repeating that learned behavior. And no one's talking about this stuff. No one's pointing this stuff out. If God's real, how come He's not helping us, right? But it's going to take this right here to begin repairing individuals coming from the hoods across the United States of America to fix themselves through divine education. Look, you're talking to someone that didn't even go to high school. I have a GED, I have some college education, because I'm always pushing myself, and I'm always trying to educate myself. But because my life is up and down, it's unpredictable, right? I don't, people that have a stable house or a place to live, man, don't take advantage of that. Understand that you're truly blessed to grow, to be born in that environment, to have a stable environment. 'Cause a lot of us, man, we're sleeping in cars and stuff, as kids, and that's just the way it is. But I'm always progressing to it, education. That's why, look at, didn't have to go to no institutional college, school, nothing, right? None of that stuff. Reached out to God, and then, the motivation to sit there and discipline myself to study these languages. Believe it or not, I learned these 3 languages in a time span of 3 months. And what I also learned and discovered, the reason why I was able to do this was that I was under the premise if God is real, He's going to make it real for me, to learn these languages, right? Against all impossibilities, God's going to make things all possible for me. And what was the real heart of my prayer? Well, the whole heart of my prayer was one, I wanted to read the Bible for myself. I don't care, right? When people start targeting people, they're the enemy, we're not the enemies, and all that stuff. I began at a young age, realize and notice and take mental notes like this, something's wrong here with the Bible. And I wouldn't be sure what I'm actually reading because I understood any Bible I was reading in English, because that's my first language, it's a translation. So I began questioning, why do I have to take this person's credentials at face value of 100% translating the Bible? Then I began reading right there in the revised Bibles, like the NIV, New International Version Bible. You go look at all the translators on there. There's like freaking 30,000 translators translating just the Bible itself. So I began just, questioning this stuff. And but the heart of my prayer was to be able to read it for myself so I can, improve myself. I'm not a holy person, and I'm not, according to the standards of the Bible. Yeah, I broke out, pretty much all of it, seems like, or not all of it, but violate, the 10 Commandments or something, at a certain point in my life, right? It's like everybody else around me and stuff. And I just keep it real. So this is how I was able to learn these languages in 3 months, by wanting to read it for myself, but most importantly for my children. I have none but daughters, so, and you see how barbaric it's out there in the world, and me being a realistic at the same time being a progressive thinker, I wanted to be able to teach my own children in case they're ever in a hopeless situation to avoid committing suicide or taking someone's life. I wanted to be able to teach them this education, reading the Bible in 3 original languages, to keep them afloat in life and to be able to share it with my family. Because, with everybody's family, when you achieve the status of reading the Bible in these languages, especially when you're brown skinned, right? A brown American, it's like I did something that I'm not supposed to do because I see everybody else around me not reading the Bible in Hebrew, Aramaic, and the Greek New Testament. And why is that? But so my family's obligated to listen to me because we're family members, right? They have to listen to me about the Bible, no matter if they believe in God or don't believe in God or subscribe to a different religion, all that stuff. And so I wanted to be able to teach them too, not to say, hey, I could read the Bible and I'm better than you. Nah, to share this knowledge because I truly believe. And just like, the same logics apply to my friends. I wanted to be able for them to learn this stuff that look, me, everybody knows me, man, and look, I came out at the end of the day, out of all that strife, trouble, freaking everything in my life, right? Just like everybody that comes from the hood. What did you show for yourself? And I come out of the ashes, it seems like, with freaking this divine education, being able to read these 3 languages, right? The Bible. So I want to share that and show them the method, how I learn these languages, and, telling them, hey, I'm not here to teach you. I ain't trying to be your rabbi. I'm not trying to be your pastor. I'm not trying to be a prophet. None of that. I want you to be able to read the Bible for yourself, even though through this experience, no one believed in me, and I didn't even believe in myself. So you see, the psychological manipulation here in the United States of America is so real in these hoods that I'm telling you, yeah, I'm one of them dudes in the hood that freaking didn't believe in himself because nobody believed in me. So that means I came from a chain of people thinking that way that didn't believe in themselves. And so how you gonna believe in your children, right? People that were spiritually defeated. And so I want them to be able, even my enemies, right? Because think about it, gangs, right? All this stuff when they ravaged the South Side. I'm from Southwest Denver, so the gangs in the late 80s, 1980s, just ravaged the communities, made it worse, divided everybody. I mean, kids. When I was a kid, my friends, we didn't see each other for like a brief, like a time span of like 6, 7 years, and then I'm wearing all blue or black and they're wearing all red. You already know what that means, and we're not from Mexican gangs, we're from black gangs, Crips, Bloods, Gangster Disciples, Vice Lords, Peoples, and all that stuff. And what do you do when you see your friend from back in the projects, the preschool and kindergarten and first, second, third grade, right? What happens there? You're gonna fight each other over a color? And Baruch Hashem, it was never like that. I'm thankful because when you're game banging, you're a killer, and your enemies, they're killers too. So, and you know, there's a lot to say, but I wanted to be able to share it with them too. Because I truly believe and understand that if people can read the Bible for themselves in its original languages, that they would, bam, there will be no hoods in the United States of America. There would be no corruption in the government. Okay. And people, we would live, so we would have a foretaste of the messianic 1,000-year range or reign of the King Messiah, right? And how do I reconcile with the rabbis? To find out, I once in a while I visit the synagogue here, and that's about it. So, but I took that spiritual authority I recognized it and said, okay, I got to work this out. And the rabbis are understanding people. These men understand a lot of things. It would be not right for them to say, well, you can't believe in the Greek New Testament. You're a Jew. You got to convert, whatever, right? And you got to do it our way. That's not how the rabbis operate. They would understand that we come from this church background, and that we would have to instead of trying to fake the funk, I'm just keeping it real. If this is what's going to keep me from converting or being a Jew and recognized as a Jew, right? Then so be it. But it's only rational and logical that I studied this in the Greek New Testament, because all my life I was reading from a translation, and people were telling me things that were not true, and so I had to, pretty much reconciliate this. And like I said, if I'm going to read the Bible, I'm going to read all of it at face value. So Matthew chapter 24, find out I'm a Jew. So how I understand that is that I have to listen to the rabbis, the Pharisees of today, because Jesus the Christ said it. But in that, we're really at the advent of the Messianic age that's going to last for 1,000 years. Read Revelations 20. For some reason, Revelations chapter 20, apart from the Greek, it's really, for some reason, almost accurate. One of the chapters that's the most accurate out of the Greek New Testament. Read about that. And for people that won't find out they're Jews, come with us. Come read the Bible for yourself. Be a free thinker. Be a person that decides your own destiny, right? Because this is the real God. This is it. I'm not lying, and think about what I'm saying here. This is the liberty and freedom of our minds, right? And be able to read it for yourself. So that's where I'm at in my studies and everything. I listen to the rabbis. Jesus the Christ, if he's real, right? Because everybody knows all these years being told, right, you're going to go to hell if you don't believe in Jesus the Christ. It gets psychological. It's a psychological thing, and it's an emotional thing, because I ain't gonna lie, I was afraid, been afraid. Plus the confusion, just believe in him. It doesn't make sense. How does that help me out in life? And I wasn't raised in an environment where I could ask questions, and I definitely didn't live in a part of the United States of America where I can ask questions, right? Because I come from the brown community, and we're the majority group here in the United States of America, and we're so divided. We've been lied to, tricked, deceived, manipulated to the point we hate each other. This means we hate ourselves. So the only thing that's going to unify us at this point in time is discovering we're all come from Jewish families, and that's God. And it's not only brown people, white people, black people, you know, Asians. Look up, Google search Jews of color. You'll be shocked to find out the truth. Like I mentioned, the rapper Nissim Black. It's spelled Nissemblack. On YouTube, look him up, listen to his music. But that's where I'm at in my studies and everything. And when Jesus the Christ comes, people have to understand if he's real or not. None of us can prove he's real. But on top of the New Testament not being infallible, but fallible, being broken, look, when Jesus the Christ comes, he's going to judge us according to the 7 Noahide laws, right, that are found in Acts chapter 15. Now, and he's also going to judge us, okay, for the non-Jewish people, they call it the Sheva ben Noah. These are the righteous non-Jewish people of the world today, right now, and in the past, that follow the 7 Noahide laws that's found actually in Acts chapter 15. And you have to understand the Greek New Testament to understand most definitely the 7 Noahide laws are found in Acts chapter 15, verse 20 and 21. And I discovered, I think this is the first time that the Jewish rabbis of the Greek New Testament, like Paul, Peter, James, the brother of Jesus the Christ, I think they were part of the Sanhedrin. I think this is the first time in Jewish history and world history that they compiled the 7 Noahide laws, and you read that in Acts chapter 15. And that's what Jesus Christ is going to judge the non-Jewish people based on the 7 Noahide laws. And obviously for a Jew, he's the Melech HaMashiach, right? That's how the Greek New Testament presents him. And he's going to judge every Jewish person according to the Torah of Moshe Rabbeinu, our master Moses, right? That's the message. That's what the Greek New Testament is saying. So you see how I can easily understand logically and rationally that I don't have to believe in Jesus the Christ because the rabbi said so. Jesus the Christ in Matthew 24 told the Jewish people, whatever the rabbis tell you to do, you got to do it, right? That's it, plain and simple. And the rabbis today say, no, for Jewish people, you can't subscribe to that. You can't believe in that. And when Jesus the Christ comes, he's going to say, hey, Jeffrey over there, I'm glad you're able to logically and rationally understand this. Here, bam, be part of the resurrection of the dead. That's going to coexist with the people that are not part of the first resurrection of the dead. That means when Jesus the Christ comes, right, according to the Greek New Testament, that the people that are part of the resurrection of the dead, the righteous Jewish people and the righteous non-Jewish people, are going to coexist here on earth for 1,000 years with Jesus the Christ. This is according to the Greek New Testament. And people that don't participate in his first resurrection of the dead, like let's say my family don't believe in it and Jesus Christ comes right now. And they say, I'm fortunate, right, to participate because that's everyone's dream. That's my dream. I want to come back to life. I want to die in the first place, and you're resurrected from the dead and you're coexisting with your family that didn't believe what you believed in and didn't follow these laws. And now, this is a moment of prosperity for everybody where people are going to live in good health, no wars. They're going to live to at least 120 years, then die. Then they have to wait for the second resurrection of the dead that happens after Gog and Magog, which is Gog and Magog. Read Revelations 20. Gog and Magog doesn't happen for another 1,217 years, according to Revelations chapter 20. But do you see how I can logically understand that? Right? Because it's hard. it was difficult that I had to. I'm reading it in the Greek New Testament, and Jesus the Christ is telling his Jewish students, "Look, you got to listen to the rabbis." I never hated the rabbis. I'm not a racist person, but for some reason, that hostility was in my heart and mind. It was poison that I realized, and that's from these religious institutions that target and marginalize people and victimize people with real life consequences of suffering, even death, and financial, in poverty and stuff. So that's how I can logically and rationally understand. Not saying I'm lying. No, the Greek New Testament is broken. But in case Jesus Christ does come and he is real, he's going to judge me according to the Noahide laws and then the Torah, because there's more to talk about, and this is what's going to keep me in the resurrection of the dead for the first time, or obviously, if the second resurrection of the dead, I'll have to coexist with immortal beings like everybody else for that 1,000-year reign, right? But for our mortal lives, 120 years, and we see, how heartbreaking that's going to be if this is real. That people, if you miss out on that first resurrection of the dead, let's say you're 50 years old right now. When this messianic era happens, when Jesus Christ comes, according to the Greek New Testament, and you don't participate in that first resurrection of the dead, you know how soul breaking it's deeper than the heart. This is soul breaking. It's going to be to coexist, to have to coexist, right? It's like we're going to be waking up, like Jesus Christ is going to wake us out of this dream. And we're going to be faced with seeing him and the resurrection of the dead coexisting with us if you miss out on that first resurrection of the dead. And then if you're 50 years old, that means you're going to live another 70 years, 120 years, and even probably longer than that, living while coexisting with people that died, and their body and their soul and their ruah, all that came back to life, and you see them. That's the real Greek New Testament is saying. So that's how I logically and rationally understand and, can reconcile this. This is what Jesus Christ says. When he comes, you say, hey, Jeffrey, good servant, here, be part of this resurrection of the dead, because you saw the fundamental truth through all the lies, deception, all the hate, all the psychological manipulation, all the emotional manipulation and behavioral manipulation and all the suffering you've been through and distractions and hopelessness and despair and pain. You saw the truth, and now you get to be alive forever. That's what the Greek New Testament is saying. And there's a whole lot more to go over. And I just wanted to read this parashah and share it with, my viewers and everything, to show you, I'm doing this because I believe in you, and you might find yourself like how I grew up, not believing in myself and living in an environment that didn't believe in me, right? You know how hard it is to now, hopefully we can have a bigger and better understanding why people commit suicide, why people fall to addictions of drugs and alcohol, okay? Because you know how heartbreaking and soul breaking it is to like wake up and realize you and everybody around you is living in an environment that doesn't believe you, that's actually hostile towards you, that wants to see you dead or incarcerated for the rest of your life, or alive working for low wages but making other people rich. Do you know how heartbreaking that is? Do you know how soul shaking that is? That's where I'm at in my studies. That's the real God that I'm reading about. The one that makes you become alive or aware, consciously aware of the environment that doesn't bleed. And not just for you, but your whole ancestors. This stuff been going on for, the last, and probably longer, but definitely almost 2,000. This been happening for almost 2,000 years, from my family and to my ancestors, and yours and everything. So Baruch Hashem that we're alive, we're living, we're here, and we're able to arrive to this point. And then hopefully God will make it clear to you that we have someone that shares a similar experience in life, right? And who believes in you that you can learn this Bible. Not for me, it's not for you to pay me, okay, but for you to read the Bible for yourself. Then you come over here and tell me what you learned, and I'll tell you what I learned. And we'll have our religious debates, and we'll go have coffee, stand on the street corner, we'll go wherever in life. Always talking about the Bible, because now we have academia, we have higher education in the Bible. The Bible moves the world. Don't let no one seduce your minds and make you think otherwise. That's reality, you know. The world today, the civilized world that we live in, that's extremely and radically and swiftly becoming uncivilized, is, you know, the civilization aspect was built on the Ten Commandments. And that's why it's immorally dropping swiftly today, because these religious institutions said, hey, all you gotta do is believe in Jesus Christ, or hey, you're saved by grace. Go read Romans chapter 5, 6, 7, and 8, where Paul gives a lengthy discourse about what grace is. And I'll tell you right now, what grace means, chesed in Hebrew is, and I think charitz or something in Greek, but it means kindness, okay? Kindnesses. You're saved by God's kindness. I'm out of here. Until next time, you guys.